It's the House of Horrors. It is the House of Horrors. I understand that the New York Mets had a tremendous victory back in September of last season. The last time that the Mets found themselves there, that we saw, in fact, in Atlanta. But it does not change the fact that the Mets had themselves a 3-run lead in this ball game, blew a 3-run plus lead for the second time since Friday, and the most Metsian fashion in how things have went in Atlanta outside of that game last year. It's the House of Horrors. It is always the House of Horrors, it feels like here. From David Peterson cruising in this start until you feel like maybe you left him in there a little too long, and I personally didn't think that we left Pearson in there all that long. I gotta be completely honest. I didn't think it was a terrible thing by having him go in there for the following inning, and then Reed Garrett does what Reed Garrett does. It can't get the job done. Wasn't even bad pitches by Reed Garrett, mind you. Lots of frustration from this one, guys. It bothers me so much more knowing that between the Francisco Alvarez blunder there that we saw right towards the end of the ballgame, which helped absolutely nothing, with the Mets not being able to even move Luis Angel Acuna off his second base that we saw there to begin the top of the 10th inning. Oh my God, wow, this is actually the first time I've been this mad in a while in a Mets loss, and this has everything to do with the fact that you're playing the Atlanta Braves, and it has everything to do with the fact that the Mets, I know, 45-27 entering this game. The Braves were 31-38, but the Mets have now lost 4 straight games for the first time this season, and this is exactly what I told each and every one of you in our pregame show earlier today on the platform here, folks, and it's the following. If you give this Atlanta Braves team momentum, they will run with it. I don't know exactly to what degree, but when Ronald Acuna Jr. makes the highlight reel catch the way that he did there in right field, because of course he did, to double up Alonso and Soto there to end the, I can't even talk right now, to end the top of the 9th inning or so, whatever it was, if not extras. This is just insane. It is actually insane how many similarities there are from this game versus the dramatics that we've seen in the past. It feels like every single time the Mets and the Braves match up, there should be dramatics like this. So I'm not mad in the sense that I love the rivalry, and that's exactly why I care right now. And that's why I'm reacting the way that I am as you guys first chime in live on a replay. And thank you guys so much for chiming in, folks, as we have a very unfortunate post-game show rant/breakdown to get into. We're going to break down everything that transpired in this ballgame, inning by inning, as we always do, everybody. But this one's a frustrating one. If you're a Mets fan, if you're a Braves fan, you're obviously ecstatic, even though you still have an uphill climb, to say the least, this season. Walking off against your arch rival in the New York Mets here has to be feeling at least pretty good. So if you're a Braves fan, I'm curious what your thoughts are in the chat, guys. And all I'm going to say is I expect back and forth. Mets fans, we talk smack all the time. So for the times we talk it, we got to take it now. And if the Mets bounce back and win tomorrow, then we can go talk the talk again. But we can't do that today, especially after the way that the Mets lost in such an embarrassing fashion. I mean, you had this game early and often. I understood that, yes, it would have been nice to score with more runners in scoring position. No doubt about it whatsoever. But the fact that the Mets were not able to get more done than what they got done in this one, and then you saw the Atlanta Braves just creeping in. David Pearson was cruising, but they were just creeping in. And then little by little, they inch away. And then as soon as Peterson allows the 9th batter there, and Mr. Nick Allen, that we see get on there in the 8th inning, I knew that that was going to lead to some problem. I didn't think that was necessarily going to blow things up to the point that that inning would get tied in this ball game between the Mets and the Braves, but I didn't love, obviously, walking the 9-hitter. That's always a recipe for disaster. Yoshimo, the $2 holla, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Every year the curse comes back when it will end. I know, and listen, I'm not saying that this is the end of the world. I'm not saying that the Mets can't win this series still or anything like that, but it's a frustrating loss, and I already see the discourse in the chat from you guys right now watching live, as well as in the comments below for people on replay. I want to hear from you guys as well watching live on a replay the following. Do you think Carlos Mendoza was at fault for pulling David Pearson when he did in this ball game? Do you think he was perfectly fine for pulling him when he did? Let me know in the chat how you guys feel on that front, because in my honest and humble opinion, I didn't hate David Pearson starting that inning. He wasn't even at 90 pitches. Maybe you're thinking you're pushing your luck a little bit, but this is the same Pearson who won a complete game shutty his last time out there and was looking solid against this Atlanta Braves team. Could you make the argument that you should have had Reed Garrett ready to go as soon as the first batter got on base? That I agree with, and that is where I think you could have the rightful criticism, if at all, with Carlos Mendoza today. No, I don't hate Pearson starting the inning, but at the end of the day, this is a results-oriented business, so Mets fans are going to react because of the fact that we saw that inning get blown up, tied the ball game, and then bam, the Braves go on and walk off and win this one in extras. I'm not going to get to the point of screaming my head off for a Mets team that is currently 45-28 on the year. I have a lot of reasons to be ecstatic about this ball club, and I will continue to be. But now that they've dropped 4 straight games, the Philadelphia Phillies are right behind. As we know, the Mets are going to have a spot starter for this Friday's game. So whether it's Blades Hidwell, Noel McLean, Brandon Waddell, Justin Hageman, all guys we'll talk about in content dropping early tomorrow, so be on the lookout for it, everybody. The point is that whoever's pitching then will be facing Zach Wheeler. And then you have potentially Griffin Canning there game 2 when he's been batting practice. So yeah, the pitching woes may continue to rear its head for this Mets team. And on a night where you had absolutely nails starting pitching from David Pierce in 7+ innings, you weren't able to get through this one. A combination of walking Nick Allen there, bad fundies there that we saw, and then obviously in the extra innings, Francisco Alvarez, I mean, not helping anything whatsoever there. BG the Kid, thank you so much for the $5 haul. I appreciate that. Mendy is starting to piss me off. I don't know if that's fair, but feels like he's not giving us an edge with any of his moves. And this is why I want to hear from you guys. How do you feel on the Mendoza front? Because I understand the criticism to a degree, but I personally do not understand, or I do not buy into the fandom, which is the following, that, oh, just because of the fact that the Mets actually lost this ball game, that's why we have to critique Mendy right now. Because I know that there are fans out there watching this live on a replay that will not have said an absolute peep about Carlos Mendoza if the Mets did not blow this game in the fashion the way that they did. But this is the second 3+ run blown lead by the Mets over the past 4 games, leading to their 4 straight losses over this stretch right now. They can obviously salvage things tomorrow, and I hope they can do exactly that, but I'm still pretty pissed off. I gotta be honest. Like, this is a really tough ball game to lose. And when you think of recent losses in Mets history, regular season Mets history, where do we rank this one, folks? Because when I think of, obviously, a lot of really, really tough ones, I don't think tonight is to the dramatics of, okay, it's all the way to the point of it's like top 3 on my list. Personally, I've had a lot more Mets losses I think have been 10 times worse in my personal lifetime in regular season than this, especially given the stakes of games. So I don't think I would put it in top 3. Congratulations, by the way, to the Florida Panthers, as they did, in fact, just win their back-to-back Stanley Cups, if I'm not mistaken. That's actually crazy to all Panthers fans out there. Anyone that's a Panthers fan, congratulations. You might be a bandwagon because there was only a collective small group of fans that were Panthers fans before they started to get good over the past 5 years. But I digress. Shout out Bill Zito, shout out Sasha Barkov, their captain, and everyone else, the Kachucks, you name it. The list goes on from there for the Panthers. But that's enough of talking about that little tangent. Let's talk about the worst regular season losses that the Mets have had in recent history. You know, you think of not only the Belly Grand Salami, you think of not only, I mean, even just the recent loss. I mean, I'm trying to think where this loss falls on the season, if this one bothers me the most or not. That's probably top 4 and losses that have bothered me the most, right? I'm probably going to go number 1, the Washington blown game. Probably going to go the Washington blown game. Then I would probably put this at either 3 or 4. Let me know, guys. How would you rank this loss? Maybe not all time when it comes to regular season losses, because the stakes were nearly the same given the Mets wins and losses versus the Braves currently in their respective standings. But if you had to pick, where does this loss fall on the season thus far? I'm really curious where you guys would have it. Maybe a ranking out of a 1 through 10 kind of thing. Let me hear it in the chat, guys, as well in the comments down below, as you all first chime in live on a replay as we're breaking down, live reacting, and consoling, going through together, venting, ranting, whatever the hell you want to call it tonight. I apologize, folks. A comedy of errors. Yeah, that's an understatement, Steve. I mean, just seeing the ball game and the way that it did there, the absolute blunder. And you know what makes matters even worse, everybody? The Mets can't allow 1, 2, 3, let alone 4 runners to be lost on the base pass. The Mets had greater opportunity to pounce more than their 4 runs in this ball game. If they just had competent base running, they would have certainly got there. Feel like Frank the Tank right now. Buzz Talk, don't get there. We can't be Frank the Tank in this shit. We're still well above 500, but I understand the frustration. I certainly do. Is off a week for this. Why use Diaz in the 9th with a bunch of 500 OPS bats? Use Brosman there. Why don't you pitch for Young? This was like the Rays comeback. So Kevin, as much as I understand what you were saying here, Carlos Mendoza in that situation every single time, at least as he would say every single time, would go out to his best reliever in a tied ball game there in the 9th inning. I don't really fault him a terrible amount there by putting Diaz in that spot, but given the fact that obviously the Mets did not score in the top of the 10th inning, that was their demise. Carlos Mendoza put enough faith that if the Mets would be able to score potentially in the top of the 10th, that would be warranted as to why you brought Diaz in the half inning prior there for the bottom of the 9th inning. But because the Mets could not even move over Luis Angel Acuna from second base to begin extras, lo and behold, we come to find out the Mets go on to lose this game in a walk-off fashion. Austin Riley gets it right over dead center. Not a bomb, but obviously right past Tyrone Taylor, and that does it. So yeah, obviously I'm frustrated right now, everybody. Not the end of the world, but we're going to break it all down. And before we do break it all down, everybody, I want to shout out two of our amazing sponsors here. And Kevin Kane, thank you so much for the donation as well. You're on the road and head extras anyway, though. Kevin, I thank you so much. I appreciate that. And here's the thing, though. I understand you're headed to extras regardless, but my point that I'm trying to make is for Edwin Diaz to go in the 9th inning, I think that was a spot that was just most comfortable because he hadn't pitched in 5 days. So you want to put him in the 4-4 spot there regardless, because if the Mets then score, then bam, it's worthwhile. And if they don't score then, and this comes back to bite them in the ass, this was the unfortunate reality, but I think Mendoza was honestly desperate on making sure that Diaz got in this game at some point regardless, especially because of the fact that it was a tied 4-4 ball game. You may not agree with it. That's perfectly fine to have that criticism, but I'm just trying to explain all the reasoning that went behind Carlos Mendoza's thought process there to bring in Edwin in the 9th. Thankfully, again, that's not what the demise was for the Mets in this ball game, but sadly at the same time, you could kind of argue it was as you got into extras because Huascar Brosban in those high leverage spots has just not been it lately. We love Brazo when he's in like the 7th or 8th inning, but when Brosban has been the 9th inning or extras has been very fickle in what you're getting, and he was not able to get the job done. Alvarez did not help. The fundamentals were horrendous, everybody, and all these factors led into the Mets 5-4 walk-off defeat tonight to the Atlanta Braves. But I want to again shout out once more, folks, and let me also get rid of this real quick just for a second. To our amazing friends at SeatGeek, everybody. If you guys want to purchase Mets tickets, obviously when they're playing hot and not playing not the way that they are right now, sadly dropping 4 straight games, concert show tickets, you name it, our friends at SeatGeek have you covered with 10% off your next ticket purchase. Head over to SeatGeek by utilizing the link down below in the description and use our promo code WARDY10 for 10% off your next purchase. And thank you guys so much for doing exactly that. And also want to give a real quick shout out to our friends here at BetUS that have you covered with all of your sports betting needs and casino needs. Should you guys have interest, just make sure you bet responsibly. Otherwise, don't get yourself involved. Goes without saying. BetUS, utilize our promo code YouTube150 for 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125 on your second, and your third up to $2,000 for whatever you guys want to bet on. Should you have interest there? And again, that is by going to betus.com.pa today. And as you guys see here, what we had initially, our predictions heading into this series, I had the Mets hopefully winning at least 2 out of 3. But now with the Mets having dropped this first game, and mind you, the Mets are actually the money line underdog for this series, believe it or not. Yes, you heard that correctly. See that they're at plus 145. So unfortunately for me, I look like the schmuck for calling it out and saying, how would they have them as the underdog? But clearly throughout the first game, at least, the odds are in the right favor versus me as a Mets fan, sad with this current reality. But if you guys want to biasly bet, non-biasly bet, whatever you need, check them out, BetUS. Thank you so much for exactly that. Let's see, Arcada, thank you so much here for the donation, the $2 holla, arcade rather. Batters 60 automatic outs. Yeah, the Mets had plenty of automatic outs that we're going to talk about in this one here in just a second, everybody, because as you see on the offensive, and I apologize, folks, completely wrong graphic. That was my Ton graphic from the other day. This is how the Mets offense concluded the ball game. As you guys can see, Tyrone Taylor was clutch yet again. I was so excited to get into how tonight's ball game should be headlined by the heroics of Tyrone Taylor. We're still going to get into what works so well for Tyrone today. Don't question it. Absolutely, we're going to break it down. TT, massive game today. 3 RBIs, a ding don, an oppo double, thanks to a Mr. Acuna that couldn't make the diving play initially. Lots to love from Tyrone Taylor in the 9th spot today, who continues to clutch up with the runners in scoring position, late and close, high leverage situations. He has been that guy plenty for the Mets this season that you would least expect it. And then you get Juan Soto with a tremendous ball game, and especially how he began this ball game. But sadly, there's nothing to show for it in the end, because outside of Soto, Alonso, and Taylor, if you did not hit in bunches, You simply did not hit at all tonight, as you guys can see right there. The Mets actually tied the Braves in hits tonight, 7-7, but the Mets' one error would be the costly difference, as well as going 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position. While the Braves weren't all that great either, they were 3 for 11, however, with theirs. As we take a look on the pitching stats, everybody, I want you to start to let this marinate in your head. How would you grade David Pearson on a final line score of 1 to 10? Don't tell me yet. Tell me later on in the show once we break down Pearson and his game a bit more here, everybody. And thank you so much for doing exactly that. Reed Garrett, again, had it until he didn't have it. And the worst part is, I don't even think Reed Garrett pitched terrible there in that at-bat to Marcell Ozuna whatsoever. Just got turned on right away. That led to those runs scoring. Just a very unfortunate situation where your bullpen comes in, is not able to handle the inherited runners, and unfortunately can't get out of the initial mess. Edwin Diaz, Huascar Brosman, we know what happened just there with Braza, but that's thanks to some absolutely horrendous bad fundies, and we're going to expand on that just here in a second, everybody. But without further ado, let's go ahead and now let's break down all the frustration. Let's rehash the frustration as Mets fans, because we're sickos, and we're going to go ahead and do exactly that. I do want to shout out, though, everyone for shouting in the chat as well. And I do apologize for having my intro run for a hot second and give you all a jump scare. We tend to do that by accident for our post-game shows. It's never personal. I never mean to do that on purpose. It just tends to happen because, especially, I'm in flux right now. I'm all over the place. This was not a loss I was expecting tonight. I really was hoping and expecting to break down a nice, comfortable Game 1 victory in Atlanta. The boys had another dominant pitching outing. David Pearson goes 8 innings of 1 earned run ball, and we're cruising. But instead, it's more of what you'd expect pre-final game in Atlanta last year, and that is where everything goes to die in Atlanta, meaning it's going to be bad juju. You got either some voodoo magic or something's going on there. All I can tell you is that a lot of bad things tend to happen for the Mets when they're in Atlanta, unfortunately, and tonight was the latest example of exactly that. But without further ado, everybody, Daniel Capps, great member. Rebecca Allen, great member. Eric Roper, how we doing? Rose, how we doing? Care Bear, great member. Chalk went up the list. Braves, how we doing? And again, you're a schmuck. Go Mets. It is what it is. I agree, go Mets. William, how we doing? Truman, Kevin Kane, going up here. Jose Antonio, Juan Diaz, great member, moderator. Eric Roper, if I didn't say him already. We got Michael Valenti, how are you? We got Care Bear, how we doing? We got Dilly Dylan, how we doing? Buzz Talk, how are you? Great meeting you the other day again. Jellyfish, how we doing? Yes, I'm not looking forward to Chris Sale tomorrow, and we will be live in the playback app for that game, which I'm ruining right now, considering the fact that you did in fact see that Paul Blackburn will be towing the rubber for the Mets tomorrow. John Heyman just tweeted, Luis Torrens should be the Mets starting catcher until someone figures out what happened to Alvarez. And I honestly don't blame him for saying that to a degree right now, because Francisco Alvarez just went in direct hand with the Mets blowing this ball game the way that they did. Irv Wallace, great member, how are you? We got Pride in the chat, great member. Jose, Mark, all you guys, Dwayne, Jose, Robert, thank you guys. Come on, come all. Dave Kaplitz, great member as always. We got JV with the 250. Thank you so much. Wardy, you've been a staunch defender of Alvarez since the beginning. When is it time to acknowledge that he's not any good? He sucks, actually. To suggest that he's not any good at all, I think, is silly, but I will say what is true, and it is a fact. Since Alvarez's 2023 season, he has been declining. There is no denying. He has not had consistency defensively and his game nearly as well as he did in his first year and a half that we saw him framing at the big league level, and you have to wonder how much did that go in hand with the Mets pitching staff and more of the Grizzle vets at the time versus maybe what they have now to a degree. I'm not entirely sure what has happened so much with Alvarez over the past 2 years. What is the main culprit for Francisco Alvarez's lack of consistent play, especially on the offensive end? If it isn't the bad defensive fundamentals, it is those catching hand injuries. 2 in each of the past 2 seasons, everybody, will certainly be an X factor in that regard. So yeah, Francisco Alvarez having another season where he begins the year with a hand injury there, this time to the hamate bone, is far from ideal. Again, it is what it is. Alvarez is not going anywhere right now. The Mets are not going to send him down immediately or anything like that. And I do know that Juan Soto is in fact interviewing right now, and he is talking to the media, so we will share any of those comments towards the end of the show here, should they be warranted. But I digress, everybody. Let's get in. Let's break down this one. Steve, thank you so much for the $5 haul. I appreciate that. Young Mets have gone advice from Vogelback on how to overstay your welcome, and Alvarez has zero fundamentals approach and situational awareness. You know what the worst part is? I agree in the sense that, especially in Jared Young, I don't know why he was in there for his final at bat. I don't know why you're not even considering Trends there? Because seriously, why are you not considering Trends there? Maybe it's not the most favorable matchup for a guy coming off cold off the bench, but at the same time, Jared Young is not a guy that's going to light the world on fire the way that we know we have confidence in Mr. Trends, even cold off the bench, regardless of who he's facing. If it's a righty or a lefty, he's going to have himself more than likely a quality at bat. So that is a questionable thing that you can look back in this ballgame and say, what was maybe Mr. Mendoza doing there? But all right, guys, let's break down this one. Let's get into this godforsaken game that I'm still so pissed off about. Hold on one second. Mind you, this ball game was obviously delayed a full hour or so. It began right around 8:10 p.m. Eastern. And afterwards, we would see with 2 outs, Juan Soto gets a pitch to hit. Juan Soto began this ball game brilliantly, the best way he knows how, because even with the Mets losing this ball game, Juan Soto has not lost his swing, and he continues to get in the groove. On a game where the Mets scored more runs than they've ever had in 3 previous starts total against Spencer effing Strellenbach, they still lose this game in a dramatic walk-off, horrendous LOL Metsy kind of fashion towards the end. Again, you just can't make it up sometimes. You really can't. And I say LOL Metsy loosely because I know that this team is so much better than that nonsensical label that they've had, especially from the Will Ponzino regime. But we saw there right away a slider hunt, 88 miles per hour right down the pipe, and Juan Soto takes it 108 miles per hour, dead central, 412 feet. His 14th home run of the season. Juan Soto's 20th home run of his career against the Atlanta Braves, everybody. And that makes it 1-0 New York Mets just like that. Shout out to the one and only. In the bottom of the first, we would see a 1-2-3 there for David Peterson as he would get a key ground ball there on Eli White. As we then get to the top of the second, we would see Francisco Alvarez work a 1-out walk. Then after Rodney Mauricio strikes out, Tyrone Taylor drives in more runs, everybody. After we saw McNeil lead off the inning with a single, Alvarez with a 1-out walk. Tyrone Taylor goes opposite field for a huge opposite field double, this time with 2 outs. 2-out opposite field RBIs for Tyrone Taylor. Sounds like a day that ends in Y. TT with his 10th double this season, taking advantage of Ronald Acuna Jr., trying to make the dive and does not prevail. That allows not 1, but 2 runs to score. And the Mets early in this ball game are up 3-0. You're saying to yourself as a Mets fan, fantastic. All right, hype me up, baby. We're feeling good. We're locked in early against this Atlanta Braves team, and it would only last so long, unfortunately. As we then get to the bottom of the second, outside of an Ozzie Albies 2-out single, that's all she wrote. And the third, everybody, we would see Juan Soto there with a 1-out walk. And then we would see, unfortunately, after the 1-out walk, we would see Soto be picked off between first and second base. This would be the start of multiple base running blunders by this Mets team today. I mean, how do you allow 3 of now 4 potential runners to, in fact, go out there on the base paths because of your lack of fundamentals with the base running itself? I don't know what got in the Mets today with their base running, but it was absolutely horrendous. We see Soto caught between first and second. That does it for an out there. Alonso then gets on with a single there, but again, that's all she wrote because he is an out trying to leg a single into a double because of course he is. So then we get to the bottom of the third, folks. In the bottom of the third, we see Ronald Acuna Jr. with a walk, a 2-out walk. Eli White then with a single, and then Matt Olson with a single would drive in the first run of the ball game, everybody. And that walk, again, the walks will always come back to bite. We say this time and time again on the platform. David Peterson, what does he do after getting 2 quick outs there in the 8 and 9 headers? He walks the leadoff batter in Acuna, one of the worst guys that you could possibly walk to then to set up potentially what Eli White was going to do, but he got on with just a single, and Matt Olson made him pay. Matt Olson, who entered this game with 14 home runs, 40 plus RBIs on the season, having a very respectable season right now, and he made it a 2-run deficit for Atlanta as we got to the fourth. The Mets did nothing in the fourth, nor did the Atlanta Braves, so we fast forward to the 5th inning where with 1 out, Tyrone Taylor gets all of that baseball. TT rips his 2nd home run of the season, everybody. That we saw Tyrone Taylor with a bomb, that being on a splitter down at 84 miles per hour, everybody, and that made it, in fact, a 4-1 Metropolitan lead that we saw him rip to left, 407 feet, 102 off the bat there, ripped to the left side, everybody, and then that does it for the 5th inning. At the bottom of the 5th inning, nothing else transpires because the Braves don't do anything, and the 6th, we would see Jeff McNeil ground into an inning double play after Alonso gets on with a single, and the bottom of the 6th, 1-2-3 for David Pearson, cruising, getting a big strikeout on Austin Riley for the final out of the inning, especially a huge strikeout on him. What was very impressive as well was to see him go and attack the way they did on Olson and Riley, getting set then for the 7th inning, because after the Mets go down in order 1-2-3 in the top of the 7th, we would see Marcell Ozuna reach down. A very frustrating error there by Mr. Roddy Mauricio. Again, infield blunder, not loving that. David Pearson isn't loving that, but how are they going to go about combating this? What do you do? What does David Pearson do? He locks in. He gets a line out on Ozzie Albies. He gets a pop out on Sean Murphy, and he gets a line out on Michael Harris II, everybody, for a clean inning. And the bottom of the eighth, because the Mets don't do anything offensively yet again, he then walks the leadoff batter, the number 9 hitter, and Nick Allen. And this is where I think a lot of you Mets fans could have more of your rightful criticism to say, hey, okay, Nick Allen got on after David Pearson entered this inning at right around 86 pitchers or so through the first 7 innings of this ball game. It didn't make terrible sense to not bring him into this ball game, especially when he was at sub 90 pitches. I didn't hate it, but after that not ninth inning, but after the 9 batter got on base there with that leadoff walk, why wouldn't you make the bullpen move? That is a big question to me. And that is where Carlos Mendoza was at fault for not maybe having Reed Garrett ramped up enough in time. Because if Reed Garrett was ready in time, if you were ready to make that decision, you could have brought Reed in after Nick Allen with that walk and let that be that. Let Reed Garrett try to do some quick double play ball potentially on Acuna, and then you go on from there. But instead, Ronald Acuna gets on because of course he does there with a single, and there's 2 on, no away, and then here comes Reed Garrett, and Reed Garrett gives up a single right away to Alex Verdugo. Bases loaded, no outs, and thankfully somehow, someway, Matt Olson strikes out on a huge called strike 3 that went in the Mets' favor that we saw there, and it was just outside the zone on the splitter. It did go in the Mets' favor. It was not a great call, not great by Blue, but we'll take it as a Mets fan in that moment. And then after Olson would be called out on strikes, Austin Riley flies out, and then here we have the big at-bat against Marcell Ozuna. And Marcell Ozuna, the schmuck that he is, Ozuna from the Braves, if you know, you know, rips a double there, down just past there over the head of Roddy Mauricio, gets down the third baseline into the left field, and that brings in all the runners there on the bases loaded, no more. It's a tie ball game, 2 out, huge clutch hitting there from Marcell Ozuna, terrible sequence there, and very unfortunate for Reed Garrett, who, as I mentioned, didn't even have terrible placement on that pitch. That was what was all the more frustrating about that situation. And then you see Ozzie Albies pop out to end the inning, but not before. In the 8th, mind you, the Atlanta Braves rally all the way back down 3 runs in that inning. We then see, folks, in the 9th inning, we would see a 1-2-3, pardon me, not a 1-2-3, a Juan Soto single that he ripped, absolutely destroyed. He smoked it 111 miles per hour to the right side. Then the polar bear and Pete Alonso, first pitch swing is going oppo right away. Ronald Acuna Jr. makes your ESPN top 10 highlight catch off the wall, because of course he does. Fantastic leaping grab. Robs would have been at least an extra base hit, if not a home run there for Alonso opposite field. And that also doubles up Soto, because of course Soto can't get back to first in time because he thought that that was easily going to hit off the wall or even be a home run, and I don't blame him for that. But because of the bad base running again by this Mets team, we would see them go down there for a brutal end to the inning. Then McNeil strikes out, and that's that. In the bottom of the 9th, here comes Edwin Diaz. He gets a ground out on Sean Murphy, a strikeout on Michael Harris II, and on Drake Baldwin, the rookie catcher, has been batting well, especially from the left side that we've seen. He grounds out, setting the stage for the 10th inning. You really mean to tell me that in the 10th inning, I don't care, that's Raiso Iglesias pitching, you really mean to tell me in the 9th inning against Raiso Iglesias that you wouldn't bring in Luis Torrens in this situation? Instead, you keep Jared Young in this ballgame, who promptly strikes out swinging. Raiso Iglesias and his inflated 6+ ERA, thinking that, oh, it's going to be smooth sailing. Mendy, what are we thinking here? This is my bigger criticism out of anything else. This was a prime time. Hitting here would not have necessarily guaranteed anything, but here's what pinch hitting Luis Torrens would have done in this situation if it is possible. You would have not only had Torrens pinch hit, then you could have Torrens shift to catcher, and if the Mets do the Mets lose DH in that situation? Let me know, because I always get it flip-flopped and confused. And the Mets don't lose DH, then perfect that they put someone else there. Either way, Luis Torrens, it just felt like that was a golden opportunity to bring him in that spot. If not, maybe consider him there for Alvarez in that spot as well, because Torrens has been clutch. He has done very well with runners in scoring position, and I understand his baseline numbers aren't overly sexy, but when you look at some of his clutch numbers, Torrens has been that guy plenty in certain sample sizes for the Mets this season, so why not at least consider? And Starling Marte is another guy the Mets could have considered. Yes, while I will say Marte off the bench in that situation against Iglesias, I wouldn't have necessarily loved. I liked Torrens more between the two, but Marte also has been swinging a much hotter bat as of late. So that is another thing to bear in mind as well. You can make that rightful argument. I was just more locked in on Torrens in that moment because I think Torrens, when I think of guys, I think a clutch up there in pinch hitting spots. Marte, I'm more used to just handling, being more that DH every now and there, and then especially batting against left-hand pitching especially. But regardless, Jared Young strikes out, Alvarez flies out, and then Ronnie Mauricio pops out, folks, to end the top of the fifth. And the bottom of the, top of the 10th. And the bottom of the 10th, what happens, everybody? You guessed it. Huasca Brosman intentionally walks Ronald Acuna Jr. right away. Then we see Alex Verdugo pop out. Big first out of the inning. Massive first out of the inning. But a wild pitch there allows, Luke Williams to get to third base. And mind you, that had a lot to do with Mr. Francisco Alvarez in that sequence as well. Absolutely brutal. I'm just so pissed that they lost this game. I really thought that they had it. I'm an idiot for thinking that they had it. I'm dumb for that. I'm sorry. Matt Olson gets on with a walk. Very frustrating at bat as well. If you're a Mets fan, 4-pitch walk from Brazo. Not even contested. And then Austin Riley right away. First pitch swinging. Ding dong. Sack fly. And that does it for the ball game. The Atlanta Braves go on to win this one by a final score of 5-4. Yeah, the fact that they even labeled it a wild pitch still is kind of blasphemy to me. That was really not a wild pitch. It should be all on Alvarez there, in my opinion. But right now they have it labeled as a wild pitch. Shouldn't it be, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but shouldn't that be labeled more of a pass ball then? Instead of it being a wild pitch? You guys let me know in the chat. I'd love to hear it. And it was a great catch by Acuna. Don't get it twisted. It was a great catch by Acuna Jr. And right, I'm not saying that wasn't the case at all. Just, man, this one sucks as a Mets fan. It's as simple as that. Well, Stearns needs to make moves or scream at Mendoza. The Mets aren't going to do any moves of drasticness, even having dropped 4 straight games. So the reason why the Mets are not going to do anything of drasticness after dropping 4 straight games is because they know that they're going to be able to get out of this. This is the kind of thing that I would be far more concerned about if we were seeing all these endless signs to say, okay, we should have these endless concerns. Yes, Mets with runners in scoring position, still a problem. No doubt about it. Yes, Mets with their base running, horrendous today. You costed potentially 4 runners at least there. That could have been a difference maker. Instead, all of them are flagged because they either get picked off there or just because they're having unbelievable stupid errors there that's causing them to be out in the base paths. It's not looking great. So what do you do if you're the Mets here after dropping 4 games? You just go back and you just try to bounce back tomorrow. And the problem with trying to bounce back tomorrow is when you look at the pitching matchup tomorrow between Chris Sale and Paul Blackburn, naturally the confidence isn't overly instilled in that situation. It's really hard to be overly confident in a situation like that when you've already put yourself in the position that you put yourself in. So, between Paul Blackburn tomorrow, face it off against the reigning Cy Young Award winner and Chris Sale, and with the Mets having Tyler Miguel on the IL, expecting a spot starter there for Friday, and Griffin Canning expected to be pitching there on Saturday. This week could really be a long one for us Mets fans, especially if the pitching gets exposed. And the fact, once more, and I can't emphasize this enough, the fact again that this was a game that could have been avoided to a degree in the win column where the Mets actually won the ball game with Spencer Schwellenbach actually scoring more than a run off of him. And yet that can be avoided because they blow it in the most dramatic way possible. Like, literally, the most dramatic way possible. This is just so Atlanta. That's the best way to label this, because I really don't know how else, if you are going to go out your way, to label it. But talking now on the pitching end, everybody, David Pearson had a great day today. And it's a damn shame that his line gets 3 earned runs charged to it when he was as sharp as he was to begin this ball game. But you know what? When Carlos Mendoza leaves you out to dry, hangs you out to dry, maybe just a little bit longer than you otherwise should have been in there, that tends to happen. Because once more, I don't think Mendy was at fault for having him start this inning. I do agree with the criticism, however, by having him stay in this ball game after the first batter. Because what is something that we have seen so many times Carlos Mendoza do with the starter? He maybe has him go 1 extra inning more than he otherwise should, but he usually pulls him after that starter allowed that leadoff runner to get on via a walk or a single. That's happened many times that we've seen since Mendoza became a manager. Yet today, Reed Garrett either wasn't ready in time, that paired with obviously Mendoza just having faith that Pearson would get out of it, and instead all these 3 earned runs get charged to him after Marcell Ozuna goes into the corner with 2 outs off Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett gets an earned run charge on him that we see there, 1.23 ERA. But David Pearson, though, still has 3 runs charging him. Just a very, very unfortunate line for him. I'm going to give David Pearson, guys. I thought Pearson was nails today up until he wasn't. Until he wasn't, he was. So David Pearson is still going to be getting a very, very strong 7 out of 10 from your guy Wardy. I'm even contemplating 7.5, but I'm going to stick with 7 for Pearson right now. I want to go 7.5. It's just harder there when you see the 3 earned runs are unfortunately attached to his name. But I thought Pearson was fantastic. He cruised with his ground ball outs, especially if we expand further as to what was so notable about Pearson in his arsenal today, what was working. He had that heavy sinker usage, 32% of the arsenal that we saw with topping out 93 and sitting right around 90. The slider at 20% of the arsenal, topped out 87, sat right around 84. The changeup that we saw at 19% of the arsenal, topped out 88, sat right around 84. The four-seam fastball at 18% of the arsenal, topped out there right around 93 and sat right around 91. And the curveball at 10% of the arsenal, topped out at 80 and sat right around 77, 78 miles per hour. So again, guys, I'm going to go 7.5 best range there for David Pearson. Maybe I'm a little too conservative on my grade today. I apologize. Some days I'm stingier than others, and it's kind of hard not to be stingy when I have the sour taste in my mouth, which is a walk-off defeat to the 32-39 Atlanta Braves after the Mets just got swept by the Tampa Bay Rays, as is. And as someone who attended the first 2 games of that series against the Rays, not loving any of this right now. I'm straight up not having a good time, especially when you add in the fact the Mets had an off day yesterday. So even after their off day, had the nice juice, had everything nice and comfortable, game set for game 1 of the series, they still drop in the fashion in the way that they did. Hitting wise, this is how the ball game ended, everybody. Take a look, take a gander. Lindor 0 for in this one. 275 average, 817 OPS on the season. Nimmo 0 for 240 average, 741 OPS on the season. Soto, home run that we saw for the one and only, 1 RBI on the season, 1 RBI in the day, 14 home runs on the year, 20 bombs against the Atlanta Braves in his career, 252 average, 861 OPS. Pete Alonso, 2 for 4, 296 average, 960 OPS. Jeff McHitz, 1 for 4 with a run scored and a strikeout, 264 average, 874 OPS. Luis Angel Acuna did not get a at-bat there. We saw Jared Young 0 for with 3 strikeouts. Yeah, maybe let's not start Jared Young again anytime soon at DH, thanks. A 148 average, 640 OPS. Mark Vientos did begin his rehab stint today as well, guys. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Francisco Alvarez 0 for in this one, a run scored and a costly pass ball to hurt the Mets towards the end of this ball game. 235 average, 636 OPS. Ronnie Mauricio 0 for in this one with a pair of strikeouts, a .184 average, 630 OPS. And Tyrone Taylor, home run, opposite field, 2-run double, 236 average, 651 OPS, and that is it for the New York Mets on both the offensive and pitching scale in this one, everybody. So let me know all your key thoughts in the comments, and thank you guys so much for doing exactly that. But as we hop now to the main slide, everybody, this is where I'm going to cut things off for all my replay viewers. So for everyone watching live now, we're going to continue on the live show, but this is going to be now just getting into all of our key comments, questions, and concerns. A couple stats I do want to relay, however, before I cut it off for my replay viewers, and is the following. Austin Riley, hilariously enough, is tied with, Juan Soto for the most home runs against the Mets since the start of the 2019 season, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of crazy. Juan Soto is tied with Austin Riley for the most home runs against the Mets since 2019. And now, thankfully, Soto will hopefully never hit a home run against the Mets again. We also add in that David Pearson is the only Mets starter to throw a pitch in the 8th inning this season, and he has now done it 3 times over the past calendar month. Taylor, and I had this in my notes before the Mets lost the lead. And the scenario that the Mets won, I had a win scenario in my notes, which featured Tyrone Taylor played hero, was tremendous for the Mets, just like how he was playing hero for the Mets back right around towards the end of September last year that we saw in the doubleheader game that the Mets won. Let's not forget that huge at-bat for Tyrone Taylor there in the 8th inning against Spencer Strollenbach to hit a double off of him, and that is what unraveled Strollenbach ultimately, and Lindor to get the bomb and everything else that happened there. And that Mets huge win in Atlanta towards the end, not towards the end, at the very end of last season, as a matter of fact. And one final thing that I have for you guys on the David Peterson front, and this is something that I will expand more on in content tomorrow in our video that drops, so be on the lookout for it. Is it time to really consider David Peterson extension talk? Because I think we've entered that category where it's time to consider David Peterson for extension talk. I don't know about you guys, but I think I found myself in that category. Where he's up at the plate facing the Padres. Good luck, buddy. I'm up at the plate. Oh, thanks so much. We'll see how I do. And that's strike 3. Let's see. Braves trolls shy all year. Oh, they usually do. Funny enough, there really weren't much of any in the chat today because they know they really can't troll yet. You know, like they're still 7 games below 500. They have a bit more work to do before they go out of their way to do exactly that. So now, guys, let's go on to breaking down everything to our live viewers. We're going to continue to answer comments, questions, and concerns, whatever you guys got for me for the next 10 to 15 minutes. And for everyone that watches on replay, thank you again so much for watching. Very unfortunate Game 1 loss here to the Atlanta Braves. Let me know all your key thoughts in the comments down below, everybody, especially on the front of not only Alvarez, David Peterson there, Carlos Mendoza, and everything in between. And just making sure that there were no final remarks I want to share with you guys I thought were overly notable. And no, I don't see anything. Carlos Mendoza just says we got to do a better job, especially in that situation. Yeah, I know that Mendoza's getting getting absolutely killed in the comments. 70 likes and 70 comments on SNY's X account. That being said, let's go Mets, baby. Let's start answering those comments in the live chat now.